First question.
Oh, there's more than one?
Well, there's actually just one question. The federal government has issued Executive Order 23-001 that limits the amount of revenue that states can impose on their citizens. The federal government has sustained or increased the amount of taxes, fees, and revenues the federal government receives. The federal government uses this excess money to fund projects in and around the nation, and often for programs that are not successful. I have just described to you what the Idaho State Legislature has done for years to the counties. Not this particular board, however, not the people that are up here on this stand. So while state and city police departments are funded appropriately, county sheriffs struggle for law enforcement resources because the state legislature tells the counties how much they can take as it pertains to property tax. So I have a question. Is this an intended consequence by the legislature and the governor to weaken the position of sheriffs throughout the state? Or is this an intended consequence to strengthen the state police chief and the state colonel who works for the governor and city police chiefs who work for a governing entity instead of the people?
Yeah, good question.
All right, it's a free-for-all. Who wants to go? Vito, did you have something you wanted to say? Thank you, Doug.
Well, we're talking about motivations here, and that's probably a little difficult to really address. Budgeting, 2020, $8 billion came into Idaho above and beyond the regular grants and federal money that comes into the at that time, $8 billion budget. So the amount of money the feds are pouring into the state allows us to have all this extra money, and it's going to social welfare. Medicaid has expanded to $3.5 billion, I think a year now. Education is not far behind. So the money is being misallocated. So is that intentional? Obviously. So when we talk about policing, and of course the attack on policing, we have to look at the same issues with respect to that as we might with your gas stoves. It makes no sense. And yet what control do we truly have? Now, I have, this is my 13th year, and I have struggled to empower the legislature, vis-a-vis the state legislature, to re-empower itself on much of the powers that it's given up. The one thing that we're supposed to do when we go down there from January to March is a budget. And that is control. And we're working on that now. With the new speaker, we're working on some of the changes that are necessary with the budgeting committee. But those changes are not happening as quickly as I'd like them to, but there is a lot more momentum, a lot more hope. So I can't really answer that other than to say that within the parameters of what JFAC, the Budgeting and Appropriations Committees, bring us, we're almost forced to rubber stamp. Now I say that as one of the ones that primarily votes no on budgets because they continue to increase, much bigger than the taxpayers. And this is the issue. Is the government putting the taxpayers and the citizens above the state and its machine? And obviously not. That's one of my struggles, and that's one of the struggles that the people from the north, who are the ugly stepchild in Boise, have struggled with for years. This team, I might say as a digression, is the most communicative and the most conservative we have ever had, and you've got to know that. We are working to empower policing. There are problems in big cities. This is not one of those, cities that has those problems. I understand the sheriff's concern about the minimum wage that we bring these people in at. It's astounding. I'm paying more in my stores than he's able to pay on bringing sheriffs in. This is a problem. So we've got to be able to loosen them up, and we've got to work in that direction. But that's just me talking. The ability to get the budgeting committee and the powers that be within the budget to enhance that is no more than us continuing to push in that direction and hope that we can make progress, obviously much more quickly than the sheriff would like. That's all I can say. Is it anybody? Phil Hart?
So I obviously know the concern because we spoke right after the State of the State on what the governor wanted and how that was going to hurt the county here. I've been working with Commissioner Matari on some legislation to hopefully help with some funding from some of the areas that aren't paying for the sheriff's services. But I think there's also 3 property tax relief bills that have some mechanisms in there that could offer some more flexibility for the county, and we just saw those on Friday, and so we can chat afterwards and discuss that a little bit more.
Ron, did you have something? Nope.
It's on now, okay. Not a lot. I was not aware of this, the shortage in funding for county police until Commissioner Matari sent me a text on that. I did forward it to the rest of my fellow legislators here. And it is a problem that the county is responsible to reply to calls throughout the county, and yet they're not reimbursed. The cities do have their own funding. So I think that there will be some changes. First thing to addressing a problem is to find out what the problem actually is. So I think that we can come to some kind of agreement here.
This is Phil Hart from Legislative District 2, since I got called out. I can just add to what Vito said, that on the Senate side there is some action to try to change the way JPAC does things, so it's going to take the whole session to probably work that out. But we are trying to do it, and we do have a new culture on the Senate side. This is my first year as a freshman senator, but my 9th year after a 10-year break. But I can tell you that the Senate is different this year than it was last year, and I think that's really good. It has a lot to do with the 5 new people we sent down from the north.